Frank!
pee.
Shut up, I'm
As
making
the
it.
other workers faded from sight, he was still behind me. I began to worry. A moment later, he called out, "It's wet, huh?" in a friendly voice. I chuckled politely and agreed. My worries increased a second later when I walked out and he was still behind me. I was close to my house now and it started to pour. My house in sight, I started jogging to get there. I glanced back and I saw the man, visibly angry, start running. As my house got closer, I began to sprint. I didn't look back as I slung the key out of my backpack and opened the door. I looked behind me. I saw the man in the middle of the street. I walked over to the phone and dialed 911. Before I called, I looked out the window. He was gone. I told my mom what happened when she got home. She didn't believe me. That night, I couldn't sleep. There was lightning outside, and I could see occasional shadows from the flashes through my window in my living room. I lay watching the flashes when I saw a strange outline. I looked closer and saw an outline of a man. I stood up and walked out of my room. I walked into the living room. It was completely dark outside. I stood in the doorway and waited. A car's headlight illuminated the pale, shallow face of Frank P. I ran into my room and locked the door. I never saw him after that night. But whenever I see that baby blue uniform, I think back to that night and that haunting image of the skeletal, unnatural face of Frank P.
This is a true horrifying incident that happened to me when I was very young. The year was 2007, and I was an 8-year-old girl studying at a primary school. The school was old, and it was built after the war and Japanese invasion in my country. I heard that there were Japanese army men and local people killed on the land brutally, and many teachers and students claim that they have encountered paranormal activity. Although I've never seen anything paranormal at the school, this place still gave me a creepy vibe. My class was located on the second floor, just beside the girls' bathroom. The chilling part is, we could see an old cemetery park from there before entering the bathroom. One day, when I was studying in my class, I wanted to pee, so I asked the teacher's permission and went to the bathroom. I got into the first stall and locked the door. There was no light or anyone in there. It was just me. Everything was silent until suddenly, someone banged and kicked the door that was in front of me. I was in shock and froze for the first seconds. I don't know why, but I didn't scream for my life. I just quickly pushed against the door so the person wouldn't break in. After a few minutes, the banging stopped. I waited for a few more minutes and opened the door. There was no one in there. I walked out, ready to go back to my classroom. Then, I saw a student with broad shoulders and chocolate skin standing opposite in my direction. He was looking at me with a smile on his face. I froze, because he was one of my classmates, and he actually sat near me. I think, after he saw me go out of the bathroom, he followed me, and that was him inside. I quickly returned to my classroom and didn't speak of anything about it to anyone. The student soon went in and sat down quietly. I cannot recall his name, but I still remember this incident even now. I will never forget this horrifying experience. I wonder what would have happened to me if I didn't lock the door, or if he had successfully broke in that day.
This happened a few months ago when my family and I were driving back from my aunt's house in Carmel. The sun was slowly starting to set as we continued driving. As my mom started to get tired of driving, my dad spotted a nice-looking hotel that was pushed back in the forest. My mom pulled over and we walked towards the hotel. The place seemed nice, but I had a bad feeling about the hotel. My dad asked the lady at the front desk if there were any spare rooms that we could stay in for the night. The lady surprisingly said yes, but that our shower was broken and that unfortunately they wouldn't be able to fix it. But she said we could use the community showers on the second floor. We took the elevator up to our room and set down our things. I decided before I went to bed that I would use the community showers. As I walked to the showers, I realized that they were much different than normal showers. To start off, there was a door connecting the boys' community showers to the girls' community showers. Secondly, instead of shower curtains, they had glass doors. So much for privacy. As I looked around, I realized the showers were completely empty. I thought to myself, if I took a quick shower, I wouldn't have to worry about anyone walking in. I hopped in and washed myself. As time went on, the glass started to get very foggy and I couldn't see anything outside. I heard the door that connected the boys' showers to the girls' showers open. Why the hell would a boy want to come in here? Since I couldn't see anything, I decided to wipe my hand on the glass to get rid of the fog. As I did that, I saw a homeless man in his mid-40s with greasy hair, with his face directly on the glass looking at me with a smirk. As I looked down, I saw he was holding a large kitchen knife. I screamed and I opened the glass door as fast as I could, knocking the guy to the ground. I quickly grabbed a towel and ran out. I ran to our room and told my parents what happened. They immediately called the police and they arrived and searched the showers. They found him knocked out in the same position I had knocked him out in. Apparently, he was a registered sex offender and even went as far as to raping a girl my age. They arrested him and I'm not sure what they did after that. This story still terrifies me to this day, and I never went back to the hotel in fear that I might see him again.
No, I'll record some, okay? Okay, here.
My name is Victor, and I'm 23 years old. I have a story that happened to me when I was 17 years old. I work as a carpenter at a local building company, and this happened at the period when I was a trainee for the same company. We were renovating a very old apartment building from around the 1960s that was going to be school classrooms for a school that had bought the building. As many carpenters, we were working on Friday, which basically means that we started earlier the rest of the week so we could go home early on Fridays, which means it was a lot of very early mornings. So one day, I was on my way to work at about 4:30 in the morning and was walking the usual way to my bus. It was about 1 kilometer. It was through the block I was living on and then through a small path in the forest, about 200 meters. By this time in the morning, it was still pitch black because it was winter and I live in Sweden, so the path through the forest was like a black hole. So I grabbed my phone and put the flashlight on, an old iPhone 4S by the way, and began walking the small path. About halfway on the path, I heard a crackling noise from my right and flashed my light in the direction and saw nothing. I just figured it was an animal or something. At the end of the path, I heard the crackling noise again, but this time it was much closer. I had always been a little paranoid in the dark, but was trying to get over it. But I began walking a little faster anyway, keeping an eye behind me the whole time. When I arrived at the bus station, I sat down, waiting for the bus, and was saying to myself that I was a coward for being so paranoid about a small sound I heard. I could see the forest I walked through from the bus station because it was only about 50 meters from the station. And when I looked at the path, I saw a man standing behind a tree, right under a street light, about 10 meters to the right of the path, and he was clearly watching me. He was wearing black pants and an old light blue, almost pastel-colored jacket, like it was from the 80s. I felt a bit sick when I realized he was watching me, even though it was only for about 20 seconds, before I saw the bus arriving from around the corner. I immediately felt relief when I saw the bus. So I stepped on the bus, and it was as usual, completely empty. I sat at the back of the bus and looked back at the forest to see if the man was still there, but he wasn't. When the bus began to take off, I heard a thud right beside my window. I quickly looked at the side and saw an arm reaching up to my window, waving at me, and the arm was wearing a light blue jacket. I didn't have time to see his face because he was wearing a hood, and the bus had already taken off. On the way down to downtown, I tried not to think about the man, but it was so hard because it was so weird, and something like that had never happened to me before. I eventually got off the bus at my bus stop and began walking to the building where I had my working clothes and my gear. It was really close to my bus stop, so it only took me maybe about 5 minutes to walk there. When I arrived at the door to the building, I grabbed my key and was about to put it in the keyhole when I saw in the corner of my eye, peeking out from the building's corner, that man in the light blue jacket standing, looking at me. I quickly unlocked the door, ran inside, locked it behind me. After that, it was 2 more doors. Both needed an access card, so nobody without the card could get inside. After the first door, it was a long hallway. To the left, only lit up by a few lights on the roof, and a ring in front of you. It was the second door that led to my locker in the coffee room. I ran as fast as I could. I was shaking at this time. There was no way I could think of how he could have got down here so fast. I put on some coffee and changed to my working clothes. It was completely quiet in the room. It felt like hours before my coworkers showed up. When they finally showed up, I felt the best feeling in a long time. When it was time to get started with working, we began walking towards the elevator that led up to the top floor, which we were currently working on. When we arrived at the top floor, I realized I forgot my helmet in the locker. So I took the elevator down, went through the 2 doors, and got my helmet, and was making my way back up to the others. When I had opened the first door and was standing in the dark hallway, I froze. I heard someone whispering my name from the back of the hallway. I looked down the hallway and saw the same man, the same light blue jacket. He was standing there looking at me. Then he said something I will never forget. "You look so peaceful when you sleep, Victor," he said in a deep but shaking voice.
Turn it down a
I
bit.
felt my whole world shatter when he said that. Then I ran for it. I opened the door and slammed it behind me. I ran to the elevator and smashed the button to the top floor. It felt like I was going 100 floors before I got to the top. I ran to the others and told them what happened. They just laughed at me and thought I was silly, saying that nobody can get in there without a card. I planned to call the police, but I didn't for some reason. Probably because I didn't want to look like a coward in front of the others. Eventually, I never saw that man again. I don't know if I was hallucinating or he was really there. I have no idea. But I never walked the same path to my bus again, and I always sleep with my curtains down, even to this day.
Okay, tell us how you enjoy our video,
I
everybody.
was 10 years old, and I was home alone. But that wasn't a big deal because we lived in a small city. My mom and dad were at my grandma's house. I couldn't go because I was sick. It was around 9 p.m. when I was about to go to sleep. My room was really small, and it only had one window facing my bed. That window to me was kind of scary, because when you're a little kid, your imagination can sometimes go wild. At that time, it wasn't my imagination though. Like I said, I was about to go to bed when I heard a loud scream coming from outside. It was really scary, but I tried to be quiet so I could listen to what was going on outside. Nothing was happening though. It was really quiet, like nothing had happened at all. Quieter than normal, actually. Some time had passed, and everything seemed okay, so I just lay down and tried to sleep. 1 hour later, I heard that loud scream again, but this time, it seemed to be closer. I froze. I was so freaked out I couldn't even move. 30 minutes later, again, the same scream. At that point, I was about to cry. I don't know why, but that scream wasn't just a scream. It was at this high pitch, and it was just so creepy. Finally, 15 minutes later, I saw something at that window. It was a really skinny woman, and she seemed so happy for some reason. She was smiling, and her smile was so big and creepy. When I saw her, I started crying. and she started screaming again. I was horrified. She was just looking at me, smiling and screaming for the whole night. The next morning, my parents came back home, and I told them everything. They called the police, and the police found out that my window, that was facing my bed, was broken, but it didn't seem like it was broken with some sort of weapon, but as if it were broken by a really high pitch.